Hello, welcome. It's Quarantine Ray, and I'm talking to Pat, who lives in St. Petersburg, Florida. How you doing, Pat?
Not too bad. How's it going, Ray?
Now, listen, you work from home regularly, right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
So
that's
with my job, I'm a consultant, so I'm frequently, well, not now, but I was frequently like flying to client sites, across the country, et cetera. But when I'm not on a client site, I always work from home. So I'm pretty used to this.
so really, it's not the whole quarantine thing's not a big change for you.
No, fortunately, my neighbors haven't slowed down my internet, but that was really my only big worry when this came about.
You're saying that your fear is that people being home would slow down the internet and somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only a certain amount of bandwidth in my neighborhood. And how many copies of that Tiger thing could be being streamed at one time?
So you think Netflix would be the reason
Yeah,
that
it's
you
not work people from working at home. I promise that it's going to be Netflix and Hulu and that sort of thing.
you so tell me, like, what goes through your mind during something? I mean, we've never experienced anything like this before.
Well, so I'm kind of curious when we come out of this, how many things are going to change in the business world. So, for example, a lot of companies have figured out how to make a lot of their workers work from home.
Yeah.
So when this is done, they're going to look at these rent bills from all of these offices and say, what am I paying this for?
I mean, I got to be honest. I think a lot of, excuse me, I'm gonna drink some water. I think a lot of businesses, the only reason they don't make people work from home now is, maybe this is just my own prejudice, but I think wealthy people, a lot of wealthy people or powerful people are the most non-trusting people in the world. And I think they're so afraid that the people that work for them are home loafing or lazy or like, I'll give you an example. Look at the Republicans during this stimulus package when Lindsey Graham held it up. Why did he hold it up? Because he said a bunch of American workers will be desensitized to hard work. When we give them unemployment, that's gonna disincentivize them from wanting to work, because I think that they are non-trusting.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that there's probably a good amount of non-trusting that backs a lot of people having people in the office. I would hesitate to say that it's wealthy or rich people, though. I've worked for some people that like they're just some mid-level manager, but they're like wanting to know what you're up to and really up in your business. So I think it's a if you're a micromanager, then you're not gonna be able to deal with people working from home, no matter how wealthy you are.
Well, and by the way, when I say, trust me, it just seems the people that are super wealthy, they don't care. All they want is good workers. But I'm saying people who think they're wealthy or people who have a little wealth, they seem to be the one. Listen, I'm poor as shit, and I don't care. I trust, if you work for me, I trust you. At least that's how I've always been. And you're gonna have to prove to me that you're not trustworthy. That's just how I've always been. Like I said, I've always been a person without a lot of means. I'm saying it seems that people the other way are the ones that are, always questioning, or what are they really doing? And I think that maybe this situation that we're going through now is going to make them realize, okay, so people generally are good people. They're not lazy pieces of garbage, blah, blah, blah. I think this is going to open up some eyes.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I might even sort of frame it in a different way. So, in my consulting world, we have two different types of engagements that you can hire us on. You can either hire us for X number of hours, and
All
we do
right.
whatever you want for those X number of hours, or you can say, I have this problem I want you to solve, and I'll pay X amount of dollars for you to solve this problem, and I don't care if it takes you 10 minutes or 10 years. And
Yeah.
so it's the latter work from home really lends itself to. I don't really care if you're loafing all day as long as the work that I give you gets done versus I
Right.
need you to punch a clock. I need to see you toiling away at, what have you. So it's a difference in the mentality. I think we're going to see people are going to sort of look at more of the deliverable based or the outcome based perspective as
Oh,
a result of
that's
this.
really good. For example, I do the web pages that I'll do for people. They'll say, "Hey, can you get this page done to talk about this?" They don't care how long it takes.
Right. You're not
In
charging them by
fact,
the hour.
the problem is sometimes they don't understand how long it takes, and it's like,
Right.
oh my God, this has taken me forever. And so I mean, it's been the opposite. But you're right. They just want the job done. They don't, and you told them what it's cost, and they're going to pay it, and that's how it works.
Right.
That would be nice if because, for example, my job at the radio station, it's pretty simple. The boss is like, we're hiring you to be on the air from these hours and entertain people, and that's always been my job. So
unfortunately, they're flexible about the definition of entertain people, so that works to their advantage.
Yes, but they're not. But they're set with, these are the hours that you're doing it from.
Right.
And I like that. I like the fact that that's the hours I'm responsible for, and everything else is like icing on the cake. You know what I mean? I like going above and beyond and doing extra stuff, but I like that being on me, not being on and this is just my own hang up, not being on someone ordering me to do things, you know?
Right.
And I like the fact that I think that's where this coronavirus is going to make all of us headed towards.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there's still going to be those things that are hourly based. I mean, especially in service industry, because you're going to need to staff your restaurant or your, whatever facility you're running. You're going to need to staff that with a number of people for certain hours a day. That's not going to change. But I think if you look at some of the folks that work in back office and finance and stuff like that have been going into the office every day, between documentation getting more digitized and this, I think that we're going to see, smaller bank buildings.
Is with people working from home now, and a lot more of our businesses becoming digital, you do security.
Yep.
That's your forte. That's your specialty.
Yep.
Are you finding the internet to be more or less secure now?
The internet as a whole. So we had this when we started off in the 90s, 2000s. Websites were notoriously insecure, and then internal networks were notoriously insecure. And then people got educated. They figured out how to configure their firewalls. They figured out how to write their applications so they didn't have all these holes in them. And then, and so things started to get pretty tight. And then mobile devices came out. And the people that wrote apps for mobile devices were not the same ones that wrote the web pages. So they made all the same mistakes that the web page people did during that initial rollout. So that took a couple of years for them. And now the applications themselves are pretty good. We're at a point, we have been for the last 2 or 3 years, where I would say that the weakest link is people. And if you look at all of the major hacks that have happened, one of two things has happened. Either somebody got lazy and didn't do the things that they knew they were supposed to do to secure things. It's no secret you should have a strong password if you've got a database of social security numbers. Somebody was too lazy and they posted it to a web or to a cloud service or something like
even
that.
In 2020, there are too many people whose password is password.
Right. The second thing that you'll see is that they'll get social engineered. They'll click on a link in Facebook or something like that, and they'll get their computer taken over. And so the hackers, if you will, are no longer attacking the code. They're no longer attacking the infrastructure. They're going after the people and the dumb things.
Yeah. So they're able to get someone's password. Facebook, the way Facebook, if they get someone's password, they clone the account, then they have access to all of their friends.
Well, so actually the cool thing about Facebook is that they've got an underlying single sign-on layer to where, like, for instance, you don't have to sign into Candy Crush. If you turn on Candy Crush in your Facebook account, it's able to use your credentials. And so as people...
Why anyone would play Candy Crush is beyond me.
And I shouldn't pick on... Actually, that company was a client of mine at one point, so I should probably not pick on them. That was a bad example.
I'm sure they're a fine
very
company.
Secure. They're very, very secure. But, any number of these different links or apps that you see floating across, Ray has invited you to play Steal Your Password, or,
But that's how they get it. They get it.
From a Facebook perspective, getting people to click on something that either infiltrates their Facebook account or does something else onto their PC. Those are the things that are a hot attack vector. Email's the worst because it's so difficult to accurately predict what somebody's going to do when they read an email, click on a link, etc. Email is absolutely the worst.
I'll be darned. So you're saying that the biggest problem, I just want to get this correct, the biggest problem with internet security is not the computers and it's not the internet. The biggest problem, it's the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, that should come as no surprise. That's true in the physical space as well. I mean, you don't have a lot of bank robberies anymore, but you have people getting pickpocketed because it's easier to find
and
somebody
conned.
careless.
People still get
Exactly.
conned.
Exactly. So
But
that's
now
not
in
unique to
Facebook,
the internet.
they con you by fake news stories and things like that. I mean, you have to admit those are new. That's something, I don't know if it was the Russians who created or what, but the whole fake news story type Facebook stuff is fairly new.
Oh yeah, and actually, I have irritated a lot of friends because I steadfastly refuse to get in conversations about politics on Facebook. But I will look at things that people post, and if it's fake news, if it's debunked, I'll throw Snopes up there or whatever. And I've had like family members get agitated with me because like they had this meme that they thought was hilarious and really cool, and I'm like, yeah, but it's false, and you're spreading false information, so you should probably know that you're lying to the world. Um, yeah, they get really agitated. Now, my new favorite, there's an app, and I don't know if you've got it in Springfield. It's something that's new to me, but they've had here in St. Pete, Tampa area for a while. It's called Nextdoor. Basically,
Yeah, I've heard
it
of that.
is
Yeah, I've heard of
okay.
Nextdoor.
It's sort of like a Facebook, but it's local. So I see
Right.
posts from people in Madeira Beach and St. Pete and Bay Pines and areas around me. If you ever want to validate how horrible you think your neighbors are, fire up this application. I've been watching a thread. It started off when they closed the Pinellas County beaches about a week ago. Somebody jumped on and thought it was unconstitutional and terrible that they would close the beaches. And
was it Greg Bishop? I didn't know he lived down there.
Believe me, this is the mecca for angry old people, which fits Bishop's personality.
Right. Yeah. Even though Bishop's like 34,
right.
He
exactly.
is like a 70-year-old.
I can completely see him going, "Get off my lawn!"
Yeah, he's a 75-year-old retired white guy yelling
Right.
at the little dark children. And I'm not implying at all that Greg is racist, but I'm saying he is
yelling at all the little children to get off.
My rights are being infringed upon. That's Greg to it in a nutshell.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, it has devolved in people calling each other idiots and Trump tards and liberal scum. And I mean, I don't even want to run into these people at the grocery store. It's like social distancing done because I don't want anyone near you.
There are people whose lives, literally, I mean, they validate their existence by how they feel about their politics. I mean, it really is amazing. And they're so passionate and they get so mad when you point out why what they think is ridiculous. Or sometimes they go all off on some kind of thing like, what kind of American wouldn't believe that this president is the greatest of all time? And they do something. And then you post on their Facebook message, it's Y-O-U-R-E.
Right. Right.
Not. I mean, little things like that. They want to go. So of course they're going to get angry when you actually point out how insane their theory is or what they believe in is, how incorrect it is. When you point out facts, people don't like them.
Well, so I don't know, and I'm very sad that it happened, but I don't know when it happened that politics turned into us rooting for sports teams. Right?
Yeah.
It's like nobody seems to want to admit. Well, I'm pretty much, I consider myself in the middle, and so I'm excluding myself from this naturally. But nobody wants to admit that neither side has a lock on all the correct answers.
Yeah,
right?
No, you're right.
The reality is somewhere in the middle.
And neither side owns hypocrisy. They both.
Oh, very true.
They both are very hypocritical. However, there is one side who cheers. For example, when you have a president who says the definition of fake news is anyone who doesn't agree with me 100%. You have to question that. And I don't understand people.
That's hugely problematic. Absolutely. So I have what I call the troll test. So if I'm in a conversation with somebody online, and it really typically applies to the pro-Trump side, although I've used it with the anti-Trump side, but I'll be like, okay, I want you to name one thing. We'll do the pro-Trump side. For me to even engage in this conversation with you any further, I need to know that you're a rational human being. I need you to name one thing that you disagree with the president on. I will name one thing I agree with him on. You name one thing you disagree with him on. And if they can't do it, I mark them off as a troll. They're a troll.
So what you would go, all right, do it to me so I can, all right.
All right. So I will say that one thing that I like that Trump did is he in the tax relief bill, he included the ability for companies to expense major purchases instead of having to amortize them over several years. So that created a short uptick in manufacturing spending, which I thought was kind of a good idea. I agree with him on that. Now you have to say something you disagree with him on as the Trump guy.
Okay, I thought in that same bill, he screwed over traveling salesmen,
Right.
the lower people on the totem pole, because they couldn't take their mileage and they couldn't get that deducted.
Perfect. Okay, so then you pass the test, and I will continue to have the conversation with you
Oh,
because
okay.
you're critically thinking. But if your
So
response
you
was,
want minute. You loaded it, I noticed, because the stuff
yeah,
you agreed with was a very minute thing that not everyone knows.
yeah.
I
So
also let you test me to see what I knew, because it wasn't just the bigger things. It was some of the more particular things.
yeah, you don't hear what I talked about at any of his rallies.
Yeah.
So that's a piece of it. But I mean, I find that more often than not, the people that are trolls are just like, well, I just agree with everything that he does. I critically think, but I agree with everything he does. I'm like, that just doesn't. No, I don't buy that. I don't believe it.
And I do find it, because there are some people, well, I'll tell you what's wrong with him. He's racist. He's this, he's that, and then other people are some of those bigger things like that show that your anger, and I understand the anger, but it's not coming from a learned place. Maybe that's not the right word, but you obviously aren't reading. Someone should,
Right.
you should know some of the more details of something that bothers you, because that's where the discussions are actually doing some good, because we could argue the things that we've discussed. We could argue about those points and actually come to a conclusion. You
Right,
have to
absolutely.
wonder why some of those decisions were made.
And I greatly prefer a conversation about policy than Twitter.
But we live in a country where people, and if you didn't figure that out during the whole trade issue, I mean, people don't understand tariffs. They just don't understand them. They don't understand who pays tariffs and how they work, and that was clear during the negotiations with China.
Well, the sad part is if you look at especially technology resources, but also higher end educated workers where the money is, we are still having to do H-1B visas because we don't have enough people to take those high end jobs. Meanwhile, the message out of the administration is go to trade school. That's fine.
Yeah.
We have such a shortage of knowledge workers in this country that it's unconscionable that we wouldn't be promoting STEM like at every turn.
Yeah, and by the way, for example, someone like me, my whole career has been in entertainment, in radio, and I'm 50. I'm in my 50s now. So if radio was to dissolve, or and you can argue all kinds of stuff on that, but I'm not a young man anymore, so I don't see the bigger markets coming after me and offering me a chance to go there. So if my next job or my next career, where you live in St. Petersburg, I was just talking about, that's like my dream place to live. But if I was going to live there, it would be getting a job. It certainly couldn't be in radio because they're limited in what they have. So I would need another career. The stuff you're talking about is something that I would love to learn and do, and I think I'd be good at it. Maybe they should consider training people, to learn how to do it, and to make sure that they are trained enough to take over some of the jobs. And that's not what this administration does.
There's a big opportunity for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, train people. I'm not asking for a handout. I just want you to pay for my education. No, it's like, I'm not asking you to give me a salary. I'm asking you to train me so that I can do some good for people in whatever my next career phase is going to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just to put it sort of a bow in that, nobody makes fun of DeVry graduates anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. No, you're right. By the way, I had a friend who was a DeVry graduate, who actually, I don't know, I told the story there. He actually made money testing. He worked, his first job was doing some kind of, there was a probe that went in to inspect men's prostates or something. And when he worked for this company, he needed extra money. So they would, if you let them test the probe on you, that you would get paid a bunch of money. Okay. So my friend did it as a young, person working for this company, except he took all the money that they gave him. He took all the money and invested it in the stock market. So now you can't make fun of him anymore over it, because he turned the money into something because of his knowledge of the stock market. He turned the money into something. So, and so it used to be, you could make fun of him for his probe stuff. You can make fun of him for going to DeVry. Now it's like, those are the guys ruling the world.
Right. Well, I mean, I can't help but think that it sounds like an awful sequel to the Vince Vaughn movie Delivery Man.
It would be awesome. I just, but I think that the training, and of course I was using myself as an example, but there are lots of businesses where you can look at the future and see that it's shrinking. And of course, who's going to have the advantage there? So someone like me, I know HTML, I understand web design and stuff. It would be perfect to say, hey, let's train you in this. So at least you can fill one of those needed spots. You're talking about, it's an underrepresented job title. So train someone like me, put me in there. And I'm just using me as an example, but I can tell you, newspaper writers, so many fields where someone might know enough to learn to get into that field. That's who you've got to train, because those will be the ones that will take over those positions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, this sort of circles back to the conversations that keep going on around, especially, with Trump, to folks that worked in coal mines and other very manual, very, very, what used to be really solid career paths that are now just disappearing because of the change in the landscape. You look at Uber drivers. As self-driving cars come out in the next 4 or 5 years, that's not going to be much of a job anymore. Or over-the-road truck drivers, or any number of them. We need to figure out where those growth paths for jobs are and direct people that way.
Because I don't think the next answer is going to be a universal income, although I think that's eventually going to have to come. But they have to do something to get people ready for what's next. And we do a really bad job of it in this country. We really do.
Right.
We're hung up on people. We're hung up on what they're paying for their college loans, and we're just not training people for adults for their third and fourth career, because unfortunately that's what's coming.
Well, and we rely on the free market to sort of make sure that there are enough workers for the companies to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
What we haven't realized is that the free market will dictate that they go to wherever that labor pool is cheapest and wherever the education is the best, and they're no longer restricted by continent or country borders or anything like that.
Let's face it, all goes to India.
Well, and to China. India's starting to get a little bit on the expensive side. So China, North Korea, those are the ones that are going to be cheaper. I'm not kidding at all.
So have we come to the conclusion that Africa is the next cheap labor?
It's entirely possible that you'll find that, a big company will contract with Tata, which is an Indian consultancy, who will then subcontract that work out to, right now it's China, but it could very well be Africa. But the reason that Africa not right away is because the education system isn't there.
Yeah.
So you have to look for cheap labor plus good education.
I read an article.
We're upside down on that.
I read an article about the work that President Bush and President Obama that they've done in order to bring Africa, North Africa, South Africa is advanced, but I'm saying they brought in bringing North Africa up to where they are now. They still have a long way to go, but you know, Bush helped. It was at least attempting to eradicate the AIDS epidemic. And help build roads and start to create the infrastructure. And President Obama did a lot for northeastern Africa, especially Kenya, but places like that. Like they did a lot to help develop it and to help them, create infrastructure. The problem is that they have the people in charge over it in those countries they can't be trusted.
Right.
But the reason is, and everybody was wondering like, oh God, what great humanitarians. Listen, they are wonderful people, but it wasn't for humanitarian reasons. It was because what you said, in the free market, companies like to save money. So at some point, when China starts getting too expensive, they're going to need that next place. And I'm telling you, the next place is going, it's been in Asia. And they basically bounce from country to country to country in Asia, where they get the cheapest labor. Now, when those countries get advanced, and the people working there start making a little money, then they want to spend it. Well, then they want more money, and they start to realize they have power, so that they should be paid more. Eventually, the country starts getting enough workers, and workers making money, that they can start selling products to themselves, and their economy starts to become more self-fulfilling.
Right.
So American companies will move on to the next country, and it's happened in Japan and South Korea and now China, and you mentioned India, and so they need to go to that next place that's going to be dirt cheap. The place that's going to have all of the people that are willing to work for pennies on the dollar is going to be Africa. So let's face it, that was the real reason that they were helping to set up.
Agreed. But I'll sort of try to reinforce that before that happens, Africa has to be stable enough to have a good educational system.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the countries that they've done, to Japan, then to South Korea, then to India, then to China, it's all trailing them having a workforce that has had 12, 14, 16 years of STEM education.
Well, the problem is the same reason that we really can't develop the Middle East, is the religious beliefs. And I know, listen, I'm not some Islam hater, and I know there are people out there that, and I'm not saying that to be, but the radicals won't allow. They're not fans of education. They really aren't, unless it's religious education, and that's something they're going to have to get past before they can really establish and set up. We'll use that word infrastructure again, before they can set up the educational infrastructure to help with the country.
Right. I mean, I think what they're afraid of is that there's going to be all of these, colleges and universities spewing all of this liberal agenda, and they're not going to be able to maintain control of their people. Wait, what country were we talking about?
We're talking about the whole world. But you're right, and they are opposing views in the world, and it's become it just shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And
knowledge, facts, education are never a bad thing, period.
Yeah, I just don't get. But you're right. There are people who fear. Educators are generally liberal. They really are. And I know there are some people that hate that. They hate it. But you've got to look past it. You have to look past it, because we've got to find a way to educate people. And when it comes to educating individuals on whatever field or whatever training they're getting, it shouldn't matter where their politics lie, but for some reason it does. And we got to get past that.
Yeah, I agree.
When I went to radio school, or when I went to a regular college, a community junior college, and that's where I learned radio. I was going to a school for bachelors, and then I transferred over to get a quicker education, because I realized I could do the other thing a lot quicker and get on the air, and really learn radio. They didn't care anything about anyone's politics. They just wanted to know if you knew how to run the controls correctly. And it just so happened, in fact, they didn't even care if you were entertaining. It just so happened that I was. And so I was able to have a quick ascent in the business. But it wasn't, there was never, I didn't know what my, any of my instructors' political leanings were. It just, that wasn't anything we even considered.
Right. Or even if it came up, it didn't affect the education you were getting.
And I think there are so many people that are scared, that are afraid of it. And I've heard, listen, they called my show.
Yeah, no, I promise you, if somebody's studying physics or math or engineering, the professor's politics are not going to affect their hireability one little bit.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't give a rat's ass about who's telling me how to do this formula. I just want to know the formula. I don't want to know your politics. And I think that if we have faith in the people using the education system, then we'll be okay that they can actually learn things.
Agreed.
I've enjoyed our conversation, my friend.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for the time, man.
I'm glad that you are well. You should write a book. You should write a book. How you're dominating this time, because you've been working from home for how many years now?
7 or 8.
Wow. What was it like not going that first time when you were not going to the office?
So it was actually kind of weird because it started in the summer. So, and my kids were both still at home at that time. So just getting the quiet time, convincing everybody in the house that I needed to be left alone. There was a big period of adjustment for that. Don't call me out to fix something or whatever. I'm on a call or what have you. But I mean, got used to it. Having to remember to groom. I did shower today, which is an important thing. Grooming.
You showered and shaved.
I did not shave. You can see I didn't shave. I will probably tomorrow. I got to check the calendar, but I think tomorrow's my shave day. Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of making sure that you don't throw away necessary things when you get out of your routine.
Well, my wife's working from home now, during this whole thing.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
And I tell you what, she's really comfortable in it. I think the problem is me and my daughter. We're the ones that are learning. And my wife will tell me, she's not going to tell my daughter, but she'll tell me, hey, I'm working. If you want something, you should get it yourself. And because I understand until like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, she's got her thing going on. And, I should not be saying, hey, can you bring me blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly the adjustment I'm talking about. I mean, it's easy for us to like pretend we're in the office and heads down and do our work. But the distractions are something completely different, And
at the same time, it was 7:30, a couple nights ago, and she was still on the phone. She was still working, or I guess it was the end of last week, which, today's Tuesday. Yeah, so it would have been like Friday. And I had to remind her, I'm like, hey, what time does the day end? It'd be nice if, which I think, you got to become adjusted. She's probably got to become adjusted to that. But
well, there's a flip side of that coin too, though, because like if she doesn't have a meeting or doesn't have something that needs her attention, then instead of, if she were at the office, she would go maybe chat up her boss or go chat with a coworker about a particular problem, whatever. Now she's going to use that time to do something around the house, maybe something that she didn't get done yesterday, or like, for instance, I've got a space between meetings. I'll go do the dishes because I'm at home and I can do that instead of going, around the coffee pot and chatting with somebody. So there's both sides of that coin. You'll see sort of as she gets into the swing of things, you'll see you guys will be more acclimated that when she's heads down, but the time that she doesn't spend commuting to the office and the time that she's, in between things that require her attention.
By the way, the money that we save on gas, the gas prices are low, the money we save on gas is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll be bits of benefit to the house that you'll start to see as things start to get into a rhythm.
I'm convinced that she'll become acclimated and really good at it right before this whole thing ends and she has to go back to work. It's good.
That's a possibility.
I call him Pat, but his real name is Ed Patterson. He is a security pro.
Actually, so Ray, I go by Pat all the time. Nobody knows Ed. Yeah, it's my legal name, but I go by Pat all the time.
So everybody calls you
Pat. The poolside part is radio only, but Yeah.
I love the nickname Poolside Pat. I've called you that forever, the entire
Yep.
time I've known you. No, but you're an expert, network security expert for computers, and I appreciate you joining us. And also, I love your mind and how it works, and I love talking to you about global,
Thanks.
you know,
I'm very flattered.
the global future. I thought it was a well-rounded discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Ray Lytle I'm going to call this quarantine chat. It's
Okay.
quarantine chat with Pat.
It's almost like a Dana Carvey sequel.
I'm not
Do you have
sure.
a little church lady dance that
Yeah,
you do?
I'm not sure I've ever been compared
It's a quarantine
to Dana
chat.
Carvey in any way whatsoever. But anyway, thanks for watching Quarantine Chat. Bye, Pat.